Faces in the Rocks by Joel Simpson. This talk will not change your life nor solve your emotional problems. It will not find you a partner nor make you rich. It will offer you a heaping portion of visual delight, show you a new way of seeing, especially nature, and supercharge your future visits to wildernesses, perhaps enough to put you in an altered state. I've always loved landscapes, and I've had a special affection for rocks. At 6 years old, my lawyer father had a ceramic ink and pen holder on his desk that had a rock-like texture. It fascinated me. I remember it distinctly with its black and brick-red colors. Later, I collected rocks and fossils starting in the 6th grade, earning me the nickname Fossil Face from my schoolmates. Soon afterwards, I took up photography. It was 1960. We took a cross-country trip that August in an un-air-conditioned Rambler station wagon. I was after the most iconic and exhilarating landscapes, capturing them in Kodachrome 1 color slides, ISO 10. Back home, I projected them on a bedsheet suspended over a doorway to help imagine being back at the Grand Canyon or Hoover Dam. I didn't become a professional until 42 years, a doctorate degree, and 2 careers later. But I was still chasing after landscapes. I captured some good ones, some prize winners, but my particular interest in rock close-ups persisted. Through the years, I would occasionally come across rock and ice formations that I photographed close-up, but I didn't count them among my most successful images, and they certainly won me no prizes. It was like a secret addiction. I take rolls and rolls of color film of them, then store the prints away in albums where they didn't get much attention. But I just couldn't pass up photographing them. Meanwhile, I pursued other careers, academia, jazz and cabaret piano. I finally decided to call myself a professional photographer in 2002. Of course, I never went to school for it. During the 2000s and teens, I traveled a lot. The U.S. West, including the Colorado Plateau, and California, including Mono Lake, France, Wales, a 10-week round-the-world trip in 2014, Italy, Sardinia, Ireland, Corsica. I compiled a coffee table book of mostly color landscapes with emphasis on geological wonders, earth forms, in 2019. It won a prestigious award and was featured on the June cover of Natural History magazine that year. But I made the mistake of ordering 1,000 copies and of trying to sell it on Amazon. I ended up with 800 plus copies in my garage. During those years, in search of prize-winning landscapes, I had lingered with my camera over a beach of sharp lava in the Bahamas in the 80s, then the colorful rocks by a waterfall in northern Italy in 1998, where everyone else was splashing in the water. I couldn't tear myself away from the lava beach at Doolin, Ireland, in 2017, despite a light drizzle, until I felt I had exhausted all the photographic possibilities of the odd-shaped saltwater pools paved with barnacles and limpets and studded with periwinkles. Then in 2019, I was astonished by the bizarre shapes of the coastal granites in Brittany and Sardinia and the layered limestone in Corsica. That same year, I visited Salvador Dali's house in Port Lligat, Catalonia, Spain, along with the chaotic geology of Captacreus, where he frequented as a boy and that inspired his surrealism. My photographs began to become more evocative, even more surreal themselves, but they still couldn't match the impact of my color landscapes, which, as good as they were, still competed with thousands of other photographers, all of us pursuing the same holy grail of the perfect exhilaration, the perfect escape from ordinary life. I decided to visit the Colorado Plateau in January 2020, armed with a fisheye lens, in order to photograph Bryce Canyon in the snow to make images that looked like snow globes. Cute, but hardly life-changing. I came home in early February, and a month later, COVID hit. I couldn't go anywhere. I sat at my computer and worked on the files of rock and ice photos that I had collected over the years. I sensed they had value, but I couldn't quite grasp what it was. But that March, quarantined by COVID to my computer, I made an eventful discovery. I picked out an interesting close-up photograph of a rock formation, then edited it in Photoshop's RAW editor, and kept editing and editing. adjusting and readjusting ever smaller local areas in ever more subtle ways: brightness, contrast, clarity, texture, blacks. After about 45 minutes, I felt an unexpected reaction in my gut. Suddenly, an image that I had known for many years, but I had thought only mildly interesting, began to fascinate me, to transfix me. I couldn't take my eyes off of it. Its elements had achieved some sort of dynamic balance that kept engaging my eyes. Background with foreground, curves and straight lines, dark areas and bright ones, details and blurs. By extended play, with trial and error, I had figured out how to make explicit what had originally provoked me to snap the photo. Now it stood out so everyone else could see it. I kept on doing that. Soon I had a new collection of images that I had never seen anything like before. Beguiling abstractions and bizarre figurative compositions, drawn right out of the natural mineral chaos that I had found in my treks across deserts, in national and especially state parks, and in the Bureau of Land Management land with no park designation. Then I curated my photographs by experimental editing, in which I simply followed my gut, my impulse, or my unconscious. I was making things visible that I had sensed but not yet explicitly seen. Their range and depth of the states of mind and soul included evocations of desire, humor, and horror, and including some classic artworks and styles, painting, sculpture, even poetry. These newly emerging dimensions lent some of them a depth that made my impressive color landscape seem little more than eye candy. But why black and white? A number of reasons. Color, evoking the real, visible world with so much information, is easier to recognize than to acknowledge and to dismiss as familiar. Black and white leaves work to do for the mind, processing, transforming work, and if the end product rewards that work, the mind stays fixated for more. So, by removing the variety of hue, that is color, you increase the number and density of formal geometric connections among the lines, shapes, rhythms, and patterns. This tightens the compositional unity and further rewards contemplation. So the COVID quarantine had given me a new body of work. Now I just had to find out if anyone else found it interesting. During an online portfolio review late that spring, one of the reviewers asked me to call her afterwards. I didn't know if she was buying or selling. It turned out she was selling her services, but my work had stood out for her, and she wanted to help me present it professionally. So we worked together for 7 months, and I produced a short book I was proud of, Playgrounds for the Mind. My new images were also being widely accepted in juried online exhibitions, including the world-renowned Eye of Photography in February 2022. So now I was pretty sure I had discovered something of value. I continued looking for similar work from other photographers, but found nothing comparable. Everything in the landscape field was still striving after conventional landscapes, going for strong feelings evoked by scenes with perspective. Was it possible I had invented a new genre by making abstract and figurative compositions out of close-ups of rocks and ice, mostly without horizons or sky? Since my subject was images made strictly from compositions of mineral and glacial elements, I called it geoframing, that is, framing compositions for their strictly geological, not scenic, content. Then, to acknowledge that I was leading with my gut, that is, my unconscious, I called my approach psychogeological photography. This is really quite simple. I didn't always know why I snapped the shutter, but I trusted my gut to snap it, and trusted my imagination to edit it later. The result was a fruitful collaboration between my unconscious and the apparent natural chaos of rocks or ice, psychogeological photography. I had found abstract compositions in rocks, as Aaron Siskind had found them there, as well as in asphalt and rust, but I had gone much farther afield than he had gone, into Nevada, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, for example, then to Ireland, Iceland, Sardinia, and Corsica, as I mentioned above, and later to China and Kazakhstan. And I had found figurations, pictures of things as well. Siskind had made tentative steps towards figuration on a visit to the lava fields of Hawaii's Big Island in 1980, but he hadn't dared name what he saw, preferring to leave it to the viewer. Now, people have always named suggestive rock shapes after what they thought they saw there. An eagle, a rabbit, or a dinosaur. There's a name for the phenomenon, pareidolia, and it's generally considered a novelty, not taken seriously as art. But I realized that with my extensive background in surrealism, I was seeing a much wider range of things in rocks and ice than the public, or even Siskin, saw. Not merely a children's menagerie, but also the perverse, ironic, grotesque, monstrous, prophetic, satirical, paleontological, erotic, mythological, and scientific. Moreover, I gave them names, which Siskin refused to do, to bring out humor, literary references, and irony. And if someone saw something I didn't see, all the better. I had learned to frame the chaos of rocks and ice as a meeting place of culture, a real playground for the mind, which was the name of that book. Then, that September 2022, I was in the San Francisco Bay Area looking for exceptional geology when I visited Castle Rock State Park near Santa Cruz. After about an hour's drive south from the Golden Gate Bridge, I pulled into the parking lot there and set out. 10 minutes later, I arrived at Castle Rock itself, an imposing structure covered with fascinating taphoni, which are pitted surfaces, which were mostly out of reach. However, walking around to the other side, I discovered a grotto at ground level. I walked in and was amazed to see taphoni covering all the walls and ceiling inside. I ran back to the car to fetch my fisheye lens, then back to the grotto, and spent the next half hour capturing round, convex fisheye images of the interior, welcoming the lens's distortion. Back at the car, I headed south to colorful Panther Beach, racing against the light. I arrived 40 minutes before sunset. It was glorious. I showed my images from the Castle Rock grotto to some photographers I met there, and one of them said it looked like a moon. That's it! By close-range rendering of flat surfaces that the fisheye made convex, I had created photographs of imaginary heavenly bodies, asteroids and moons. This is a much bigger discovery than virtual snow globes of Bryce Canyon. It was science fiction. I was using contorted mineral surfaces from inside caves and grottos as the stimulus to evoke other miniature worlds, all based on terrestrial geology. Now, in addition to photographing exceptional eroded sandstones and granites, I sought out caves, grottos, and later dried mud. I found one 6 months later on the black sand beach in Iceland. Then the year after that, 2024, in the famous caves of the Black Hills of South Dakota, and that summer a provocative cave in southern France. I accumulated a wide range of asteroidal terrains, which evoked the strange diversity of surfaces photographed by unmanned spaceships like Explorer and Viking, which sent back photos of Martian landforms, Jupiter and Saturn's moons, and many real asteroids. That same year, I embarked on creating a definitive, mostly black and white collection of my new rock and ice photographs. Since I was challenging standard practice, I decided to include historical background, aesthetic theory, and explanations of why I had decided to break some of the cherished rules of landscape photography, especially by giving my compositions fanciful names and deliberately photographing found figurations, the faces, among other things, in the rocks. I organized the book as a progression from traditional landscape to abstract composition to figurative ones, finally to the fisheye science fiction ones. I called the book Faces in the Rocks. This book is my concrete proof that photography can do much more than document what's out there, from science to social documentary to the beauty of landscape, properly used. Properly used, it can stimulate the imagination. It can make us dream, speculate, and laugh without departing from mineral, factual reality. These are not digital composites, which are kinds of photographic cartoons. They are captures of authentic reality edited to reveal aesthetically poignant, expressive compositions. I had found them by letting my unconscious, my gut, lead me through the apparent chaos of mineral and ice forms, then to edit them to make my vision stand out. A painter can paint fantasies, things of his own imagination, but only photography can precisely capture real forms and features of the physical earth. Then the receptivity and techniques of the photo artist work to synthesize fantasies, desires, terrors, enigmas, daydreams out of those forms and features. They won't be exactly as one imagines them. That's left to the painter. But they'll be an amalgam of the chaos that one finds in the mineral wilderness, together with the memory-fashioned mental objects one calls up. The result will be completely original, astonishing abstractions and figurations, wholly new artworks. Moreover, what these images prove is that there is more joy, more mental stimulation, and more provocative beauty out there in the real world than most of us expect, especially if our eyes are open to them and we go looking for them. It's not only worth traveling considerable distances to see, but it can become the main motivation for travel, as it is, I confess, for me, having recently been to China and Kazakhstan for these purposes. And I let myself have some fun with my discoveries, giving them fanciful names, relating them to other artworks, painting, sculpture, even poems. I intend to show the viewer what I see, then to invite him or her to play with me, and then do it on their own, to have some fun with the bond between the human mind and the random forms of nature, the nexus between our brains and the planet. And again, if someone sees something I hadn't seen, all the better. So every walk in the woods or desert becomes a fun or inspiring conversation with natural forms, textures, colors, and you may be tempted to fixate on a particular configuration of forms that might seem chaotic at first, until it fills your whole vision and you enter it. This is a form of visually stimulated meditation, which can also take you to revealing places inside yourself. Virtually all of my viewers and readers report that my work encourages them to see more now when they are out in nature, to engage in the kind of playful, attentive looking that I propose. After looking at 50 or 100 of my images, there are about twice that in my book and on my website, most people tell me that they feel their vision expand in unexpected directions. The experience draws them outside themselves, enriches their time on Earth, and deepens their bond with their home planet. Each viewer becomes a more committed advocate for this amazing world and its incredible variety, a greater lover of wilderness, less dependent on commercial culture for stimulation, and better able to pass this way of seeing on to their children. It's all out there waiting for you. Thank you.